Sure. Hey, Adam, are you going to let me know when to start or?
I'm sort of waiting till we get more participants, but
Okay,
there's
that's
thir
fine.
there's 13 people here. We could go ahead and start.
Yeah, whenever
I'm
you want,
not,
just let me know.
yeah, I wasn't sure how many people are sort of coming to this, but yeah, I
Okay.
say go ahead.
Okay. Are you putting it on my screen there, or do I need to share?
Um, yeah, you should share.
Okay. All right. Hey, Adam, can you see that good?
Yep.
Okay. Hopefully everybody else can hear me. My name is Mike Regan, and I am the chair and will be presenting the responses to proposals from the West Region Soil Taxonomy Committee for this year, 2020. Okay. Hey, Adam, is there any way to make all those noises stop on my end? I'm sorry. Or no?
I honestly don't know. I'm
Okay,
sorry.
I'll keep going. Never mind. Thanks. Okay, just my first time with hosting a Zoom meeting and all the bells and so on going off. So, okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry
We'll
about that
just
all.
push on with it. No worries. Okay. So this go around, a regional conference every other year, of course. We had a pretty good committee in terms of numbers and expertise, thoughts and energy. So I appreciate all the members there. You can see their names there on the screen. We also this year had a lot of proposals to deal with. So we did spend a lot of time. We got started back in, I think it was February, having meetings, and then had to accelerate as things came in fast and furious with all these proposals this time. So that was great. It gave us a lot to talk about. So what I'm going to do here today is just kind of briefly summarize the committee's overall recommendation for each proposal and give you a couple bullets as to why, some of the reasoning and rationale, and then what might be the future might hold for some of these if I have something to say about that, for some of them anyways. Okay, so I'm gonna just go to the next slide here, I think. Okay, there we go. Okay, so let's start out with Tephra epipound. This was the first 5 here. So I'm doing these in 2 screens, 5 on each, so you can see the results here, but try not to read ahead. I'll focus on this Tephra epipound here real quick. This was a great proposal in terms of concepts. It's a pretty new and regionalized proposal from the Southwest. What the committee looked at here was some interesting things in terms of the proposal itself had some really good ideas, but it just the committee feels it needs to be expanded, evaluated a little bit broader in terms of how it might jive with Andic soil properties, some of the other epipounds like melanic. And then one really interesting part of this proposal was to eliminate or to use rock structure, kind of like the reverse of how rock structure is used in the molic epipound to exclude it. This would be criteria to include it in the tephric epipound. And this of course is fresh volcanic material, or relatively fresh volcanic material that still has this structure of deposition from the ejecta, the tephra. So that was kind of interesting from just a taxonomy standpoint. Anyways, so what we recommended was to return this one to the author. Hey Adam, I just got a pop up. I was just gonna talk and not have my face on the screen. Is that okay? Can you hear me, Adam? You're muted, I think. Anyways, I'll just push on. So,
Yeah. Sorry, what were you asking?
Oh, there's a pop-up on my screen.
Oh, I see. I think our co-host popped in. And
oh, okay, great. Okay, so yeah, so with the tephric epipound, the one of the 3 choices, right? Accept, reject, or return to author. This one, the recommendation from the committee was to return to author. And in addition, we're going to set up a working group from the West region to evaluate and refine this proposal. The author, James, down there in Arizona, has some folks to talk to, and they're going to get started after this conference. So if you want to be part of that working group, let me know. Send me an email or whatever, and we'll get you contacted with that group. Okay, so that's the Artisal. Or I'm sorry, the Tephra pattern. The next one's the Artisals. So this one, we're kind of on the fence a little bit, but the general feeling was to approve. There was general agreement in most of the concepts. You know, it was a very large proposal. So I'll just be honest, I don't know that, you know, everybody, you know, went through it with a fine tooth comb all the way through. So I think our comments are just, you know, in general, not a lot of specific things. Well, let me say a couple things that we just like to pass on comments to the author is, there is some concern amongst committee members about developing criteria and testing for some of these hazardous materials, just from a safety standpoint. You know, how would that work out? Should we be handling those materials, or how do we diagnose them otherwise? So that's the safety concern, I think, is there always with some of these, you know, man-made nasty materials that we leave out there. So anyways, the other one was the, you know, the use of maps and other resources and so on to support the classification of the site. You know, again, taxonomy doesn't really have, it basically just deals with soil site, you know, properties. So that's a bit of a deviation from the norm, and just wanted to comment on that, you know, lends itself to some issues. So we'd like to have that be considered, the use of non-site property information. It's kind of a deviation from the tradition. Okay, so that was Artisals. The Densic and other sea horizons, I'll call this one, boiling it down. This was actually two groups apparently that got together, or a group that got together and split in half about their thoughts on how to improve horizon designations for Densic and CR and how they relate to root limiting layers or not. Okay, so on this one, there was a lot of mixed opinions on the committee. There's a lot of folks that have been trained, you know, out in the field describing head-ons. When you know, run into this layer that you can still barely dig through with a shovel before you hit the hard solid rock, that's a CR and a paralithic contact, and they're kind of always one and the same. Well, you know, that's not the case, and the standard CR horizons are just a diagnostic or a designation, not the paralithic diagnostic feature or horizon. So, you know, there are cases where, you know, horizon designations kind of seem to muddy the water. Sometimes they help, sometimes they muddy the waters. There's some issues with these CR and CD, you know, and that relative to origins and things like that. But I think and this is just me speaking here for just one brief second, and instead of the committee here now, but to me, it seems like there was this issue over whether something was called a sediment or sedimentary rock. And that kind of, you know, was the foundation of some of this issue. I think when you look at a sediment that's coherent, dense, root restrictive, all that, and look at a sedimentary rock, you can be hard pressed to tell the difference. And so I think that may be some of the root of some of this issue, whether people just like that label sediment or sedimentary rock. Okay, so anyway, that if you look at, you know, the CR, it's supposed to be soft rock, right? CD, densic, is just dense and root restrictive, but not cemented. It doesn't say it's sedimentary rock or sediment. It can be either. So I think, you know, we've got some comments we'll be providing back. We don't really have any, you know, magic solution for this issue of CR that's not paralithic, that causes problems with folks or whatever. But the one thing I can say, I think, is that, you know, there weren't too many people. In fact, there were several people on the committee that were not in favor of the use of age and distinguishing materials. For instance, Holocene or younger, that criteria there is in a geologic time scale of, would we be calling that a D or something else? That break is not very, it was mentioned that it's not easily found in many places in the West anyway, in the mountains. So that leads to some trouble, and especially in Alaska too. So anyway, that nobody was really in favor of that age criteria of the distinctions. So we will be providing some comments back to the author. This proposal was more of it wasn't really per se a proposal to change anything in the keys, except maybe some wording about the designation, but it was more of questions. Here's an issue, which way do you think we should go? So it was a little bit unique, but it's still a very good idea that we need to think about and resolve hopefully at some point. So that'd be great. Okay, I'm going to move on to the Limnic subgroups for gel-alls. This one, the verdict was returned to author from the committee. They basically, the issue or the idea that this organic material in the wetlands where the author was looking at these profiles was largely influenced by migratory waterfowl. Okay, so there was a lot of organic matter being deposited from migratory waterfowl in these wetlands. Looking at the definition of limnic materials, I'm not sure, and a lot of committee members weren't sure that was, part of the concept of limnic material. But, realizing that the author found something out there that's unique in Alaska, there could be a lot more of it. We'll see, but some of the comments back were maybe pursue, instead of the limnic subgroup, maybe something at the family level could be used as a differentia. One thought was the very high phosphorus content of those materials, those organic materials, may be used. So yeah, that's kind of the verdict on that one. We're going to return it to the author with some comments. The other one little thing in there was the ordering. That limnic, if it were to be approved in the gel-alls, would, it would need to go before sapric and after hemic just to key outright. So that's just a math thing, I guess, if you will. But okay, so simplifying the moloch and tenumoloch. So I put these together because they're really taking the moloch epipedon and splitting it. So these are very interrelated proposals, even though they're separate on paper. So we put them together and treated them as one, basically. Okay, so the reason why, the main reason I think that the answer from the committee was to reject this one was because of the way it's set up, in that if you are using the thin or the tenumoloch kind of concept, currently the way you can get into the moloch epipedon with the 18 to 25 centimeter thickness as opposed to 25 or greater. So there's those sort of shallow moloch epipedons. Many are in the West, and we have lots of these. The way that the wording is, though, you would have to have that thinner one rest right on top of a root restricting layer, and many of ours do not. So they would change order from mollisol to something unknown at this point without evaluating all those. But so that I think was the biggest point of contention there. There's another one I'd like to point out that as written too, with the pH as a substitute for base saturation, you can actually get a soil median moloch and umbric epipedon criteria. And I don't think that's the intent of the keys. We want to do one or the other on that, I think. So okay, there are a couple good ideas that I'd like to point out also from the committee. They liked supporting the elimination of the N value criteria in the moloch epipedon and eliminating the rock structure criteria for the moloch epipedon. Everybody was pretty well in support of those two concepts within the proposal. So even if I say reject, it's not total loss. I think there's some, and maybe if that proposal looked at those deeper soils that had the thin mullock that was over something else other than a root restriction, that might make it an easier sell out here in the West. Okay, I am going to move on to the next page here. Okay, we got the next one up was definition of organics. The committee was basically leaning toward approving this one. Just wanted some more testing, additional testing and evaluation. Thought it was, that could be done a little bit more to make sure that these definitions are gonna pan out that way. So, but the committee didn't have any reason or couldn't find any grounds to reject this proposal. So it seems doable from the Western Committee. Okay, so the tier criteria for organics. This one, again, approved, but with some comments that I'll mention. So I think one of the things we looked at was that, a lot of the histosols in the lower 48 do not use that 60 centimeter thickness criteria where you have the, very low bulk density organic material. Nearly, well, most of them, we're talking by some evaluations found, in that order of 80 to 90% of them use the 30 centimeter criteria here in the West and some places. So not sure how much of an impact this would have on us. Probably not a ton. Yeah, I guess we're just leaning toward basically approving this one. It seems like it does simplify this tier criteria for organics. It basically gets rid of some of the that middle section, right? So instead of the 3 tiers, we would boil it down to 2. Nobody really could find the reason for the original tier boundaries. They just seem kind of arbitrary, and they do cause some confusion. So I guess 2 is simpler than 3. So I think we would just probably like to see what would happen to those other ones that are we're using the 60 centimeter low bulk density surface tier. So, but anyway, the general idea was to approve those. Okay, so the family reaction classes for organics. This one we were kind of, the committee was half in favor, half return to the author. I think most of everybody was okay. The only one criteria that is in this proposal that, again, it's kind of like Artisals. Nobody wanted to see the non-site information, the vegetation criteria that's listed in there. We all talked about it as a good concept, but yet, the keys, trying to keep them traditionally designed to, be able to look at the soil profile right there and key that without having to rely on presence of vegetation. So that was just one of the parts. And but otherwise, I think, that one looked good for the most part. So I think otherwise would be in favor of it. The thaptohistic subgroups. This was sort of an interesting one from the Western folks, since it seems like most of these are probably out in the eastern part of the country. I haven't seen a lot of this myself. So anyway, interesting soils. I guess, we don't have any reason to reject this. So I think that generally everybody was willing to approve, generally support it. One of the comments was it's not really ideal to have horizon designations as part of the criteria. When we're talking about O's versus A's and that sort of thing, it might be better to just go with the property, the carbon or the color or something. So there's also seems to be a gap maybe left in this proposal between, if you can meet this by having epipedon or this organic matter content threshold, it's it's 0.6% carbon for a epipedon. I think this proposal is 1%. So there's this 0.4% gap in there that just may be an issue. So have to look at the wording there to see if that can be eliminated, that potential gap. Otherwise, you know, and then there were some questions about how this would fit into the keys and the ordering. There were some proposals, but not specifically for which, you know, order and how they would squeeze in there, this subgroup. So we'd like to see how that would specifically fit in and modify the keys, where it would come out, ahead or behind what, you know. So that would be nice to know. Okay, so the last one I'd like to talk about, the 10th one. Well, I shouldn't say that. There's actually sort of an 11th one. I'll mention that after, or the 10th. So the 10th one here is the fluventic and pacic subgroups for gel-alls. And the committee generally approved this one. Seems reasonable, mirrors a lot of other existing parts of taxonomy. Seems like a necessary piece that's out there in the landscape, as the authors pointed out, and we'd like to approve it. Okay, so let me speak just as from the chair after running through all that. I just want to very much thank all the proposers. You know, none of this happens without people's ideas getting onto paper and sending them in. So really appreciate everybody contributing to the science and our understanding of this, how to classify and group soils. It's a never-ending game. So keep it up, and I appreciate all the good thoughts from the authors and proposers. Secondly, I'd like to thank the committee members. We had a lot of phone calls. We spent a lot of time talking about things. And I really appreciate, especially one committee member who told me that, you know, it was really the great thing about this committee is the discussions, you know, and that to me is kind of my favorite part about it too, just to get on the phone with a lot of people and talk about things. You know, what are you seeing in your area? What does that look like in my area? How can we make sense out of all this together? So it was really a lot of fun. I really appreciate all the committee members, all your time and efforts, sending me comments each and every week usually. So really appreciate that. And then I'd also like to thank Curtis Monger and for organizing many of the authors to come and talk to the committee on the phone during our teleconferences. That made it a lot better. I've hosted this committee in the past and we did not do that. We pretty much had all the authors of the proposals this time in our teleconferences, and that made a world of difference to understand where they were coming from and why. So whoever chairs this committee in the future, I would strongly recommend doing that as well, to try to get those authors in on your teleconferences to have that discussion with them. Otherwise, it can be a big guessing game as to why somebody was thinking the way they were. So I guess at this point, I need to stop and open it up for questions and seriously take notes if anybody's got some comments they would like to see included in our final report for the West. So with that, I'll turn it over for questions.
Okay, I'm not sure how the questions are going to work exactly. I hope people can unmute themselves.
Okay.
I hope. If David, can you hear me?
Yes.
How do I let people sort of ask questions?
They can do a chat or they can unmute themselves and they can ask it live.
Okay, is that possible? I see a question in the chat.
Yes.
Do you see it, Mike?
No, let me.
Adam, you can ask the question and then they can answer it live.
Okay, I'll read the question and you could sort of answer it, Mike.
Okay.
Okay, question about the land use criteria is being referred to in the Artisals sole order proposal. Is the committee referring to the HAZIC materials criteria?
I would have to go back and find the specific thing, but who asked that? I can get back to you on that.
Randy Riddle.
Randy. Okay. Yeah. Sorry, Randy. I don't have an answer right off the top of my head. I could make a guess that that's the case, but I don't want to say anything incorrectly. So let me back up and look through the references and get that to you for sure.
Any more questions?
Well, while people may be thinking of questions, I just wanted to mention that there was a proposal that came in very late. It wasn't really, I guess, a formality to review for the report this time, but I wanted to make some comments about it. There's a proposal for a Aquasol soil order, and basically these are soils that would have aqua conditions within 30 centimeters of the surface. So the committee has started briefly to dive into that proposal. We still need to think about it some more. We don't have a lot of, enough of comments from enough members yet to say whether we have a consensus feeling one way or another. It came in a little bit toward the end of our cycle, and I think some people were, headed to the field as that was the last thing we talked about, and maybe just haven't gotten back to thinking about that yet. So that is something, though, we definitely are thinking about and would like to discuss further. From my perspective, I'll just throw in my comments, the same comment I made to one of the proposers that presented to us, that aquatic conditions in the upper part in a lot of places. I mentioned here in this region, and the proposer said, hey, that happens here too, which is pretty cool. So anyway, it's this concept of this moist winter and springtime condition, maybe very wet, saturated, and anaerobic, and then for a brief time anyway, once the growing season starts, once you get warm enough, and then all of a sudden the climate gets really dry, and that aqua condition is not there for very long. It's there for long enough to leave some evidence, but I guess what we were discussing was how wet should aquasols be? Should they be these ones that dry out all the way to the surface at the beginning of the growing season and then stay dry for the most of the growing season? So those are at least from my perspective, trying to find could there be a duration of anaerobic or aqua conditions as a criteria? Right now it just says some time, so maybe that's something to think about. I don't know, just throwing it out there for thought. So anyways, if anybody has thought of some questions about one of the 10 proposals that came in now, if you'd like to ask, please do.
Yeah, feel free to unmute yourself to ask a question or type it out in chat.
Where is the chat? Oh. I finally found the chat thing, Adam.
Oh, okay.
I see Kathy Perillo said it's okay to lurk here. Yes, of course, Kathy. All right, well, I guess if nobody has a question, I will be given a 10-minute summary Thursday on this. So the way this has worked in the past is the door is still open for comments for this cycle until Thursday, if you get them to me before my scheduled report is due. Please don't go crazy though. Anyway, the door's still open. It's there. Let me know if you need anything. My email is mike.regan@usda.gov. Let me know if I missed anything or you're curious about anything or have a disagreement. We'll try to work something out.
Mike, if you
Other
want
than
to
that-
type that in the chat, your contact info.
Yeah, you bet.
Maybe people are shy. They want to email you.
That could be. Okay, so can everybody see that, or do I need to hit enter there? I guess I need to hit enter. Okay,
Yeah,
there's my email. Okay, so thank you everybody for your time. Hopefully you have a great rest of your virtual conference, and be talking to you soon. Oh, one more parting shot. If anybody is interested in chairing this committee next year, send me an email. Thanks.
Okay, I'll wait till everybody leaves and then I'll close the room here at 4
Okay.
or sooner. All right, it looks like everybody's left, so.
All right, Adam, thank you so much for hosting this for me.
Oh yeah, it was real easy.
All right, have a great one.
Yeah, you too. I'll see you.
Okay, bye now.
Yeah, bye.